should you do intermittent fasting? Well, good question, and there's several ways to do it. And let's just kind of go through the different ways. You have something called the 5 and 2, which actually I do not like at all. 5 days of the week, you pretty much eat what you want. And then for 2 days, maybe it's going to be on the weekend, you do a version of intermittent fasting, which is not intermittent fasting. It's basically you reduce your calories down to 500 calories per day. So that's kind of mimicking fasting. So here's the problem. It takes 3 to 5 days to adapt to ketosis. So if you're going to eat what you want for 5 days, and then for 2 days, go down to 500 calories, you're going to be so hungry and craving. I mean, what are you trying to achieve? If you're trying to do weight loss, you're going to spike insulin on these days, and this is going to be so insignificant. So I do not recommend the 5 and 2. Then you have the every other day fasting, where you're not eating anything for 1 day, and then 1 day you're eating back and forth. Again, it's going to be rough because it takes 3 to 5 days to fully adapt to ketosis to the point where you're like nearly 100%, especially if you have insulin resistance. But the point is, it takes longer. So every other day doesn't allow you to do much adaptation. So I recommend you do daily intermittent fasting. So one of these right here, you have 16 and 8, which is probably the most common. So you're fasting for 16 hours, but your eating window is 8 hours. So let's say the time between your breakfast and your dinner, or your lunch and your dinner, is a total of 8 hours, because they don't really specify if you're going to do 2 meals or 3 meals, but you have an 8-hour eating window, but then you have 16 hours of fasting. For the average person, this might be a very good thing. Now, the key is not snacking, of course. And also, what might be good is if you were to do this with 2 meals and then not eat anything else but in the eating window. So you have your first meal, and then you wait 8 hours, have the second meal, and then you have nothing to eat. So you're getting the benefit of that fasting after the second meal all the way to the first meal on the next day. And then you have 20 and 4, which I really like this one because you can start seeing even more benefits, especially with anti-aging. And it's very therapeutic for your brain and your heart. And it's for a lot of things. It's good for repair. So let's say, for example, your first meal is at 2 in the afternoon and your second meal is at 6. That would be a 4-hour eating window with 20 hours of fasting. And you're not eating anything during that period of time. You're drinking water, you can have coffee, maybe a little cream, you can take your vitamins, you can do tea. You can probably also do things like stevia, but you're not having any meals because the actual meal will trigger insulin. So this is a very, very good one. And then you have Omad, 1 meal a day. And a lot of people are doing this with fantastic success. It's even better than this if you can do it. If you're over the age of 50 and you want to lose weight, this is probably what you want to shoot for as you get into it and adapt to it. Because not only are you going to lose weight pretty quick, but if you have any type of blood sugar issues, you're going to fast for 23 hours. So it's a lot of good repair action. Now, if you are diabetic and you have a slow metabolism and you're postmenopausal, I recommend doing 1 meal a day every other day. Now, I would work up to that, but some people need to do that to see even more change, especially if they're not seeing a lot of weight loss in their midsection and they just need to take it to the next level. And with this too, you can also add periodic prolonged fasting. So you're fasting a little longer, maybe every 2 weeks or every month. Maybe you go for 48 hours or 72 hours. That just puts the icing on the cake. Maybe I shouldn't talk about cake. The key thing is always make sure you're doing keto, healthy keto with intermittent fasting, because a lot of times these programs allow you to eat, have a cheat meal, whatever. Well, ideally we don't want to do that because it just kind of sets us back. There's alternative foods that you can eat to give you a dessert, or that you eat with the meal, not as a snack, that are very similar to some of the pleasure foods out there. So it's when you're doing these right here every single day, you're really allowing your body to adapt and get into it. And so it's very easy at that point because you're not craving anything anymore. So your hunger is gone. These other ones, I can't say that your hunger is going to go away from that. Also, you want to look at the purpose for doing it. Let's say you want to lose weight. Well, it really depends on your metabolism. If your metabolism is fast, then you can get away with somewhere in here, okay? Maybe 18 and 6. If it's slow, you're going to have to go to Omad, or even 1 meal a day every other day. Now, if you're doing it for health reasons, let's say you have Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or epilepsy, or some other health problem, I think this would be perfect for you. One of the challenges that you may have if you want to not lose as much weight is that your insulin's going to be so low, so you're going to lose a lot of weight. So you may want to just eat large meals on those 2 meals and make sure you add a little more fat. Maybe keep your carbs at 60 grams, okay? A little bit higher than what we normally recommend, which is 20 to 50. So, I mean, if you're like in your 20s, you can probably handle that. Going into intermittent fasting, this is what I recommend. Start off with 3 meals a day. You might already be on that, but you also might be snacking. So the first step is to cut out the snacking, okay, especially at night. That's number 1. Now, if you find that difficult, just add some fat to the meal, okay? Then what happens is use the rule, don't eat unless you're hungry, okay? In the morning, am I hungry? Let's say you're not, then don't eat. Go as long as possible without eating, okay? So ideally, the first meal would be at the lunchtime, okay? But if you're still hungry in the morning, it could be the day before, that supper, the day before, you had too many carbs, okay? That could be why. Or you may need to add more fat to the meal, or you just have to give it more time, or you need to add some MCT oil to your coffee here to allow you to go longer. Okay, so anyway, when you do that, you're going to go longer, longer, longer. So let's say you have your breakfast here, and then the next day it's here, and then finally you're here. Okay, so then you're at 2 meals a day. And then let's say you want to go to one meal a day, then you slowly start to eat later and later and later. So you eat at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Depending on your hunger, let your body tell you when to eat, adding fat when necessary. And then make sure that you're also doing your nutrients too. That will help cravings as well and make it a lot easier. All right, there you have it. There's my answer to how often you should do intermittent fasting. So if you want more knowledge on how to create a healthy body, subscribe now and get daily notifications.